What's going on, Raider Nation? Welcome back to Vegas Nation First and 10, your bi-weekly podcast, and now video cast, I guess we can call it. Adam Hill. This is Adam Hill, also from
people
Vegas
demanded to see us.
People, you know what? It was our ears were ringing. We are abiding, as they say, to all the clamoring for us to be on video, and so therefore that's what we'll be doing. In the aftermath of the Raiders' 20-16 win over the Cleveland Browns, and this game will long be forgotten in terms of its excitement or luster or any of those things. But I don't think it's going to be long forgotten in the Raiders' locker room for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it comes on the heels of the debacle that happened on this very field right behind us last week in the embarrassing loss to the Carolina Panthers. So that's number one. They had to respond, and they did. But also, maybe more importantly, they did so down 6 starters that I had. Really, it was 5 starters, I think, in 7 total, if you count Malcolm Kuntz and there was somebody else that I missed. But anyway, they were down a slew of starters, including their best player on offense.
I think you were saying Marcus Epps would be the one.
Right. Devontae Adams, their best player offensively. Max Crosby, their best player defensively. So kind of the heart and soul of this team were not available due to their injuries.
Team's kind of under construction, just like the stadium is. We
yes,
hear that
exactly. They're transitioning here to something. We don't exactly know. But the long and short of it is that the Raiders, coming off a terrible loss and needing to respond, but being extremely shorthanded with some real star power, found a way, and that's what we talked about. You have to find the resolve to get to 2-2. They relied on a bunch of young players that we'll get into here in just a little bit, but they did just that. And 2-2, as I wrote, modest record, but I'll tell you this, Adam, it avoids, for now, the holes that they have fallen in the last couple of years that kind of short-circuited their playoff runs before they even ever got off and running. Not to say that the Raiders are going to make a playoff run, but in order to do so, you can't fall into the kind of holes that they did 2 years ago at 0-3 and then last year at 1-2 and never really were able to climb back out of it, at least at 2-2. And I'll ask you this. I think if you were to ask the average Raider fan and probably inject some truth serum into the Raiders people themselves, 2-2 after 4 games, however they were able to get to it, is not a bad place to be.
Yeah, I think before the season, most people, if you looked at it, said 2-2 would probably be a very good record for the Raiders. I mean, you thought you were probably going to lose the first game. You're more than a field goal underdog. You're a big underdog in Baltimore. And then these 2 last weeks would be considered basically toss-ups, last week being one of the only games they were favored in all season long.
Right.
And they lost it.
Yep.
So I think 2-2 on the surface, you would say, good job. And 2-2 as of this morning, you would say great job, because I think a lot of people thought without Max, without Devontae, they're 1-3. I think a lot of things. I mean, again, just like Baltimore, I would caution them after the game saying, don't think you accomplished anything. Like, don't leave saying, we got this figured out. We fixed this.
No.
And they didn't after Baltimore, but on the field it looked like they did think that. A lot of breaks went their way. They had the right opponent on the field.
Right.
I mean, if you said you're going to be 1-2 without your best players, coming off of last week, and you've got the Chiefs or the Bills or somebody like that,
of course,
you're probably in a lot of trouble.
Yes.
They had another team that also was struggling, also had a lot of injuries, also didn't have confidence, but they took advantage of it. And that's something that we haven't seen a lot of the Raiders. So when you say, well, it was Cleveland, well, this, okay, but they still had to do it. Last week was Carolina.
Right.
They found a way.
Right.
And I think it was a very good team win that they're feeling really good about. The issue is now, take it forward. Try to find a way to make this, again next week. Don't say, we won this game, thank goodness.
Right.
Now we can take next week off.
Right.
Like, no, you can't. Like, you have to play like you played today every week, and when you have Max and Devontae back, and when you have a fuller lineup. Like, you have to keep that going. You have to keep that the mentality going, the mindset going, the passion going, all those things. You have to continue and play that forward.
Yes, without question. And we mentioned the starters that were out. We could just Marcus Epps, Divine Diablo, Thayer Munford, Michael Mayer, Devontae Adams, and Max Crosby. So
decent players.
That's some pretty decent firepower right there. Who steps up? Where do we start? DJ Turner, Trey Tucker, DJ Glaze, Isaiah Pola-Mao, Jackson Powers Johnson, Charles Snowden, of all people. They got a lot of contributions from some younger players, and I think that if you're Tom Telesco, the general manager, or Antonio Pierce, and you're looking at a bigger picture of all this, like you said, by no means have they figured anything out, and this is going to be an uphill climb all season long, just because of the situation that they're in, especially at quarterback and some other positions. But when you're looking for growth spurt of a team, and like, maybe you can count on DJ Glaze, maybe you can count on Jackson Powers Johnson, maybe Isaiah Pola-Mao could be a long range starting safety. In this league, Trey Tucker and DJ Turner, guys that you've been developing and putting time into. It's satisfying when the weight of the world is thrust upon them, and they don't blink, and they get it done.
Yeah, and also maybe there's a lot of layers to it, but part of the, I don't want to say desperation, but I think part of it is desperation. It's your back against the wall. You had a terrible performance last week. What are you going to do to turn it around? You don't have your best players. You can't just throw it to Devontae Adams 20 times.
Correct.
What are you going to do? You're going to scheme up ways to run the ball. You're going to try to figure out, okay, we're going to give this wide receiver a carry, this wide receiver a carry, this tight end a carry.
Yep.
You're going to find other ways to do things. You're going to do things that teams that know they're overmatched do.
Right.
And maybe that's the desperation they need to find. Maybe that's the attitude they need to find of, even when you do have your good players, you have to find ways.
And sometimes out of desperation, what happens? You come up with solutions sometimes when you have to.
Yeah.
And what Adam was just alluding to is the fact that they had no other choice, and that's what happens sometimes. Is out of desperation, sometimes great, brilliant things are.
Is it out of necessity?
Out of necessity,
innovation. Is that
there? You go. And so they
I don't think that's the right phrase. I'm like Patrick Graham now. I'm
Right.
close to an expression. Can't remember exactly what it is.
I think we're getting the gist.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. So now you see some of the fly sweeps that we saw. Some of the a short throw here, just trying to get the ball into your playmaker's hands.
I'll say this: I did a podcast over the summer, a fantasy podcast, and one of the things I said was, man, OTAs, you're seeing a lot of Brock Bowers runs. He's running the ball a lot.
Oh yeah. And you got one.
And
today.
I actually got a message from some people that had heard that, some listeners to I don't even know what this podcast was. Who were like, I heard you say on this podcast he was going to run the ball. You saw it today.
Yeah,
like
we did see that.
It was, hey, they figured out we need to try some of these things. We need to figure out a way to do some things.
Right.
They figured out a way to do some things. Again, not pretty. It was not the most gorgeous game. You take away a couple of plays again, just like Baltimore.
Sure.
You change there's an 82-yard touchdown, gets called back.
Right.
You have a play late in the game that could have changed the other way. I think the throw, it might have been intercepted, but the throw to Snowden, either an interception or probably a touchdown. So there's a wide receiver that was pretty open. So
right.
I mean, those kind of things as they work out, like, okay, you'll take it. You find a way. You figure it out. Again, not pretty, not beautiful. A lot of things could have changed, but they didn't, and they found a way to win.
I'm sure to Antonio Pierce, what did look downright beautiful, sexy maybe even, was over 150 yards rushing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where he's wanted to get this team all along. And as Adam said, did it look like the way he probably drew it up? No. But 153 yards or 152 yards is 153 or 100, whatever
Well,
it was.
I think it was – I'd have to go back and look, and I have the stats here, but I don't want to look detailed right now at the laptop where we're talking to these lovely people. But I think they had 153 total rushing yards all year, and I think they were at 153 until Gardner Minshew downed the ball.
Right.
To go to 152 on the last play. So that's a
way to ruin the story, Gardner.
Yeah, but yeah, very interesting that they were able to finally get it going and figure out a way to move the ball when they had to. And early on, it didn't look like it. I mean, they're down 10-0.
Right.
Interestingly enough, Jack Jones benched for 2 series. Cleveland scores on both. Jack Jones comes in. They don't score again when he's on the field the entire day, except for a defensive touchdown. So
this is true.
Messages sent, and maybe messages received too.
Right, and what Adam was alluding to was that Jack Jones. It was the first 2 series. It was actually the entire first quarter.
Right, but it worked out that it was 2 series.
Right, because that. Boy, I'll tell you what, the Cleveland Browns, what a majestic drive that was. If you're into this type of stuff, 15 plays, over 9 minutes taken off the clock to start the game. I don't think the Raiders got the ball back until they had just over 5 minutes left, I think, in the first quarter.
It was almost 10 full minutes.
Right, exactly. So a thing of beauty if you're into that kind of thing. But as Adam said, and this goes back, we think, to the business decisions that comment of Antonio Pierce coming off last week's loss against the Indianapolis Colts. And I think you didn't have to be Vince Lombardi to watch the tape and see couple of instances in which Jack Jones was, probably wasn't given the best effort. Now, in his defense, he had gotten hurt. Or I'm not going to go into all that. Regardless, he got sat down.
Yeah.
There was accountability that was involved, and it was the first two series, or Browns' offensive series, which covered the entire first quarter. But as Adam said, message delivered, message heeded.
Easy for me to say, not you apparently.
Apparently,
but yeah, and it was pretty remarkable. He comes in and the defense kind of changes from there. I mean, Jack Jones is a very, very good player.
Sure.
Obviously there are some things that need to be corrected, and I saw Patriots fans kind of doing a victory lap this week about the Raiders, saying, "Yep, that's exactly why the Patriots cut him." But you also see why the Raiders wanted him so badly, and why the Patriots wanted him so badly, despite all the issues, because he can play, and he came in and I thought played really, really well. Changed the defense after he came in, and like we said, no more scores the rest of the way for the Browns.
And I felt like the Raiders got pretty solid players. There was that massive breakdown on the 82-yard touchdown that got called back with a holding call, but I felt like Ja'Cory Bennett played a pretty decent game. I felt like Isaiah Pola-Mao, starting in place of Marcus Epps, comes up with 6 tackles, a sack, plus a huge pass defense.
It would have been 35, 40-yard gain to Jerry Jeudy, and
on a 3rd and 16.
On a 3rd and 16, would have got a drive really jump started, and that was when they were down 4 in the fourth quarter. 5.5 minutes left, and that play was made, and Pola-Mao breaks it up. It was perfect timing, and oftentimes you see safeties in that situation go and try to lay a big hit, potentially get called for a penalty. He played it perfectly, got right to the ball, knocked the ball away, and stopped that drive right there, and that was a key drive. Now, unfortunately, in the Raiders' case, they weren't able to run the ball. They couldn't take time off the clock like they wanted to do and kind of win the game from there. But the defense comes up big and makes a couple plays when they have to.
Yeah, and that was problematic. The last 4 real drives, aside from Gardner Minshew's kneel down to end the game, for the Raiders was a fumble that got returned for a touchdown, punt. So,
but good punts.
Yeah, they were great punts. But I think the Raiders would take a couple more first downs and running out the clock a little bit. They gave the Browns way too many opportunities to kind of get back into this game, maybe even win the game. It literally came down to a last second or last minute stand by the Raiders. Charles Snowden coming up with the pass breakup, and then also the sack of Deshaun Watson on 4th and 3 from the 9-yard line, I think it was. That sealed the win. By the way, we'd be remiss not to send our best wishes to Isaiah Pola-Mao. His wife is going to be induced into labor on Monday. They're having their first child. It's going to be a son or a boy, and I know Isaiah was really hyped about that. But in addition to that, he had to do a little balancing because he gets his first career start on Sunday, and then the biggest day of his life is on Monday. So credit to the young man for being able to balance it all.
Absolutely, no question. That's it's a tough task to do. I assume. I've heard.
Right.
For sure. But there some other things that happened late in the game that I think we need to get into and address, and we'll do that on the other side.
And I was feeling comfortable out there, feeling confident. Kind of had to get after the first drive, get the jitters out. But shout out to everybody on the field. It makes my job easier when everybody's playing on the same page and flying around doing their jobs. So I tried my hardest to carpet. I know. I know what I mean. But it's especially tough, with my son coming on the way. So now that this is over, I can start looking forward to that.
And there was Isaiah talking about the big day on Monday and trying to compartmentalize. He had a little trouble saying that word, but we understood. That's a tough one to say, right?
Sure.
Right there with all the bright lights and cameras and microphones in your face. But you had mentioned that there were some plays that we have to get into.
I think some issues.
Issues.
Here's the thing. I saw some Raiders fans and actually some national folks really just attacking the Raiders late in the game because there was some absolutely wasted timeouts that were used.
Okay, yeah.
And the Raiders were going to be in some trouble if they did get the ball back. If Cleveland had scored there and they got the ball back, why do the Raiders only have one timeout? What is going on here? And then somehow Antonio Pierce gets out-clock mismanaged by another team. Amazingly. It's been an ongoing issue. Obviously, Antonio Pierce is still figuring out. He's talked about
you're
that.
saying that when
the Browns are getting ready to run a 4th down play, it's 4th and 3. They have 3 timeouts remaining. Tough news for the Raiders because not only could they give up a first down there and the Browns could score, but also the Browns still have 3 timeouts. So even if the Browns don't score, They've got 3 timeouts to be able to stop the clock, and the Raiders have shown no ability to move the ball and get a first down. So either the Browns are going to score, or they're going to be able to get the ball back with about 30 seconds left with another chance to score. And then Kevin Stefanski decides, let's instead try to draw the Raiders offside and get a free first down, and then waste a timeout before we run our fourth down play. It's unbelievably, shockingly bad. And as it turns out, Raiders get a sack. Then the Browns only have 2 timeouts, and the Raiders are able to run out the clock. Just stunningly
Just
bad.
playing a little devil's advocate. I personally think try to do what they were trying to do, which was to get the Raiders, offsides, but then call a timeout and just go talk about it. Go. Hey, what do we like here? What are we thinking here?
No, you can't use the timeout. You absolutely Here's the thing: analytically, better to take a delay of game than to call a timeout. And there's not even a question on that. I know some of these analytics things back and forth. Absolutely 100% you would rather take a delay of game there than call a timeout. No, don't take the delay of game.
I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Don't take it. I'm saying
I want to
run the play.
I definitely want to get with my quarterback and find out what do we like here? What are you feeling right here? Like I think that there's some value in that. Now, obviously the play went completely sideways, so whatever
what you're saying, this is what you're saying. And think about, and I know that there's other people
to
that
me
are
the game's right
with
there. The game is right there.
Sure. Your choice is, do you want 1 chance to win or 2? That's the decision you're making. And you decide I want 1 chance to win. And what your point is, I'd rather have 1 chance where I have everything planned out and know what I want to do here. But the option is, do I want 1 chance or 2 chances?
Yeah, because
and they chose 1 chance. That is stunning and awful.
I'm not thinking it's the. I don't think it's the worst thing. I mean,
it's not the worst thing. I've seen Antonio Pierce make worse decisions.
Yeah.
But and I'm not singling him out. There's many coaches that do.
Right.
But that's a very, very, very bad decision. It was a very bad decision by Cleveland. And hey, Raiders fans, be happy. It worked out in your favor.
Yeah,
and also
for sure.
for the Raiders fans that do criticize some of the Raiders' clock management and game management decisions, which often are bad.
Right.
It's not just the Raiders.
No.
Other teams make really, really, really bad decisions, and you saw it today. Cleveland cost themselves another chance.
I just think there's a thought process of, and sometimes, and I agree with it. I want to talk this thing out. I want to try to find out what's our best play. First of all, 3 yards or the touchdown. 3 yards is all you need. Let's try to get some voices in here and find out. I mean, how much time would have been, even if you have your?
They would have probably had about. Well, they probably would have had about 40 seconds. 40 seconds from probably the 40-yard, their own 40 or so. Most likely. I mean, again, the Raiders could have got a first down and ended the game or
number
whatever.
One, there's that, and plus,
but the Raiders hadn't shown any ability to pick up a first down in the fourth quarter.
Right. But yeah, I would say clock management continues to be, but I just don't think it's as easy as we sometimes think. I think there's a lot of different.
I'm watching the game, and I say to I was sitting over by our boss, or a couple of our bosses actually that were sitting up with me, and the Browns come to the line of scrimmage, and I say, if they are seriously going to try to draw them offside and then call timeout, this is unbelievable. What an absolute break for the Raiders, and then they did it. And so you're saying it's second guessing, and I get that a lot of times.
No, I know.
This is in the moment. Obviously, it was a horrific decision. And I was on the elevator with some Browns folks that were just baffled. Like, what was he doing?
Yeah.
What was he doing? It's inexcusable.
Outthought himself.
That's inexcusable.
Maybe outthought himself. I don't think that it necessarily would have changed. I think you got it. You got 3 yards to go. You got to get those 3 yards. And thankfully for the Raiders anyway.
It also, by the way, gives the Raiders a chance to reset what they wanted to do. And they changed what they wanted to do defensively.
There's always
the Browns had just picked up 13 yards to play before.
Right.
Kind of had the Raiders backpedaling a little bit, had the personnel that they probably wanted to go against, and then the Raiders get to change their personnel and decide what play they want to run. And what the Raiders did is ran extra defensive ends on the field, and then stunted and got the sack. Right. So really, of course it backfired. In several ways.
Yeah, it did backfire, and the Raiders, were able to take advantage. But I mean, and you look at the Browns. I mean, I think I'm a Kevin Stefanski fan. I think he's really good.
I usually am.
There was a little bit of maybe a brain freeze on that one, but now they're sitting at 1-3, and I thought Deshaun played.
I thought he was fine. I mean, if you look, like, his interception was probably the best pass either quarterback
Oh
threw
my
all
goodness,
day.
that was
it
all
was a
on
great pass.
Cooper, yeah.
Hit him right in the chest. That turns into an interception. And by the way, they would have been driving. I think they would have been down like the 20-yard line.
Of course.
If he catches that ball,
Yeah.
that changes the game. Then he has an 82-yard touchdown,
Right.
which
Taken away.
would have given them the lead in the fourth quarter. That's taken away. I mean, you change those two plays, which were great throws.
Yeah.
It's an unbelievable day for Deshaun Watson.
Offshoot, do you think that maybe Deshaun is kind of found himself a little bit here? I mean, because that's the big talk in Cleveland. If he could play like that, and they could avoid some of the silly mistakes.
And again, he played like that with their entire offensive line, either out or in new positions, because they kicked out a guard to tackle, so it's the same starter but a different position. I think every starting offensive line was in a new spot. Like, if he plays like that and they get their line back, which is one of the best run blocking lines in the league when they're fully healthy, that's a team that could be dangerous.
Keep an eye on the Cleveland Browns. By the way, I thought it was talking to Antonio Pierce after the game about Jackson Powers-Johnson, who did finally get the start at left guard. That's where he played primarily until late in the game when Dylan Parham went out with some sort of an injury, and so he had to flip back over to right guard.
I think he's still dealing with the foot. It's been lingering for a while. It flared up last week.
Right.
He was on the injury report with it, and I think it just got to the point where he couldn't go.
Right, exactly. And so, by
the way, you saw, just to point out, like we mentioned how much they struggled in the fourth quarter. That's when they switched.
Yeah.
When
Cody Whitehair
he went back to the right side and Parham came out, and that's when you saw the offensive line start to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, I think the best offensive line is Dylan at right guard, Jackson Powers at left guard, Andre James, Colton Miller, and hey, got to give some credit to DJ Glaze as well. Sure. I don't know what that means for right tackle long range, but because Thayer Munford, when he gets back, kind of a good problem to have, I guess, if you're the Raiders. But it was funny come to find out that Jackson Powers-Johnson played 21 snaps in his debut, right, last week against the Indianapolis Colts, and Antonio Pierce kind of fessed up that on multiple occasions the referees came over to the sideline to tell him to warn Jackson Powers-Johnson he's playing with a little bit too much edge, So this is a dude that likes to get after it. And I asked him about that afterwards, and he's like, I've been playing like that since I was 8 years old. I got into football because of the physicality. So, I'm not going to be changing anytime soon.
There was one play where I saw the pile kind of start forming, and then I saw somebody just fly into the pile.
Did you see that? I saw that,
and I said, I already know who that is.
Exactly.
I don't even have to look at the number.
Right.
And
he did. There was a holding call that he got called for, which was a good call. But he manhandled that dude. I mean, it takes a little bit to pick up a dude like that and throw him down like a big old defensive lineman. So I don't know. I think if for Raider Nation, I think you should be excited about this young player because he kind of brings that edge and that mentality that really the Raiders are looking for. And I'm not saying that he and DJ were the difference in them running for a season high because I thought that Luke Getsy did some interesting things, some things better to get the run game going, but maybe there isn't too much of a coincidence because I think he brings that physicality.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. You saw that, and you saw just kind of the energy that he brought also there, and maybe a little addition by subtraction because Cody Whitehair has just really been struggling.
Exactly.
So maybe that does give them a little of a boost, but obviously have a pretty good defense to go up against next week. We saw what Denver was able to do against the Jets today in just awful conditions. Somehow, held the Jets down to 9 points. So we'll see. This Broncos defense has been pretty good all year.
Yep.
Broncos offense is awful.
Right.
So it could be an interesting game next week. Although I thought today was, you kind of referenced it wasn't the most exciting game. I thought this was going to be like a, real 5-4, two safeties.
No,
but I thought there was a lot of excitement to this game.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to your original statement that out of necessity, some ideas were born today.
I don't think that was it. It's something like that.
Something like that. But we know what we're talking about.
Necessity is the
they
mother
had
of
to
invention,
figure something
I
out
think,
because, gosh, you're without Devontae Adams. What are we going to do now? So they figured out some different ways. Some new wrinkles, and they worked. And I would imagine that they're going to be part of the plan now moving forward, or should be.
And there's also it's tough to say this it'll be misconstrued, and I know it. And I know there was players that were trying to say it without saying it, and they were being so careful because nobody is saying that the Raiders are better without Devontae Adams.
Correct.
That's not something somebody would say. Devontae Adams is one of the best players ever in the league. But if you don't have a guy that needs to get the ball, 10, 12 times, and every single play you have to try to figure out who to give it to, where to go with it, sometimes that does open up a little bit more. And so I think that was part of, you saw how much the ball was spread around today. Different receivers, different running backs, different, tight ends getting rushes, that sort of thing. It's just every single play you're trying to figure something out instead of, well, if all else fails, we'll just throw to 17.
Right.
Well, you don't have that option.
No.
You've got to, every single play, you've got to try to be extremely creative with the ball, and I think that helped a little bit. Now, long term, I don't think that works.
Right.
But in the short term, I think it's every single play. If you're straining to figure out where are we going to go with it, because we need to figure out a way to get yards
Right.
instead of just knowing that guy's going to get them for us, it does change how your offense works.
It does. I do believe that you put the ball in Trey Tucker's hands, you put the ball in Brock Bowers' hands, and I feel like he needs to get the ball more moving forward. You put the ball in Jacoby Myers' hands. Alexander Madison played, really well today. I think DJ Turner is a guy that, his needle's pointing up as well. If you're Luke Getz, you're going, okay, I do have some really good playmakers on this team, guys that can do things with the football in their hands. Maybe it's time to get them the ball. All right, so the Raiders are 2-2. That's a good place to be. They go to Denver to play the Broncos on Sunday, as Adam said. Kind of offensively challenged right now, fantastic defensively. It'll be kind of a battle of wills, but there's no reason why the Raiders can't go there and get a win. I'm not saying that is what's going to happen, but this is a team that they should be able to go compete with in Denver. And you get to 3-2, and then you got the Steelers coming in. You got some beatable teams when you look at what's coming. Don't want to get put things too far out there, but this is a part of the schedule right now where even with the injuries, the Raiders need to take advantage.
Yeah, no question. Is it too early for snow in Denver? I wish it was.
I've been there this time of year, and it was 80 degrees on a Saturday, and it was snowing the next day. So I'm not ruling anything out.
Well, every time I'm there, people tell me it doesn't snow. Like it's sunny like 320 days a year.
It
or
is
something.
sunny for sure. You're close to the sun.
I feel like
Closer.
that's a game that would be more fun if it snows.
That would be fantastic.
So let's hope.
Let's
hope that happens. We've been there in like a blizzard.
Yes, I've been there.
That was kind of ugly, but
wicked
I think
weather.
a couple years ago. They usually play the last game of the year there for some reason.
Right, yeah,
so.
those have been some hellaciously cold days.
I'm down for some October snow.
All right, same here. Why not? Because we've been boiling. It was hot again today. It was hot in the press box. So Allegiant Stadium.
Nobody's
I don't know
feeling
what was
bad.
going on. Look at we're actually in the general manager's booth right now. For this is where Tom Telesco watches the game. Nice, cool. He's got a nice air conditioner in here.
Yeah, but it was definitely warm. It was warm here for the UNLV game yesterday as well. We'll have to get that figured out, but I'm sure nobody's feeling bad when we get to sit here and watch the game.
We're not complaining at all. All right, so
you're gonna mention also that the CO2 tanks went out in the soda fountain for like an hour and a half. Like you're gonna.
I did see that.
I don't think these are things we need to complain about.
I'm just on water, but I saw that there were some grumpy people.
There were
some grumpy people. I do like the fountain better than like if I'm getting a Coke or a fountain Coke.
I mean, if we want to go hardcore on this, we need the cups that SoFi Stadium has. That's where we need to start. So they keep your drink cold the entire game.
We're not lying about that either. I think we talked about that in our last podcast. We're going back to Los Angeles in a few weeks, and so yeah, always a good time to pick up some extra cups that come in handy during the Las Vegas summers.
Sure.
I will say that. All right, so we'll be back with you guys midweek next week ahead of the Denver Broncos game. For now, the Raiders are 2-2. Not a bad place to be especially when you look at the standings. I mean,
I'm gonna go check that forecast.
It's topsy-turvy. That's right. Ahead of the Broncos game. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for reading. Thank you for watching all of our videos. We do it all here at Vegas Nation. We're happy to do it, and you're the reason why we do it. So tell a friend. It's getting to be holiday season coming up. If you want to gift somebody a subscription to Vegas Nation, why not? It's the best Raiders coverage anywhere, and we stand by that statement. Adam Hill, thanks to Heidi Fang, who our great producer, who keeps us on time and listening or sounding good, and now maybe even looking good.
Yeah, so it's not a miracle worker,
right? That's true. That's we can only ask so much. But anyway, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Until next week, enjoy this Raiders win. If you're a Raiders fan, have fun with it. Another one coming up next week. We'll talk to you midweek.
And hope for snow.